we start to wonder whether we were going to be called up, as I was a Marine Corps reservist at the time.
Says Ed Widmer when it was first announced that Iraq had invaded Kuwait. Within the next couple of days, Widmer got the call telling him that his unit would be sent to Saudi Arabia. Widmer was part of an artillery unit where he was a field radio operator. This meant that he was responsible for calling in fire missions. Widmer remembers his first reaction when he landed in Saudi Arabia to be hot and very sandy, making it hard to breathe. The sand was hard, almost like rock. As he looked around, he noticed it was very desolate. Widmer says they were all nervous and excited all at the same time because none of us had ever been through something like that before. When asked how his unit reacted to the new scenery, since Widmer was a field operator, he had many jobs that he was assigned as well. This ranged from tracking movements to radioing the location of troops. He remembers at times that they would be bored out of their minds, and at others they were so busy they barely sat down. Once the U.S. invaded Kuwait, that all changed.
We were going to invade Kuwait. We basically had about 12 hours notice, and we said, this is when we're going. They said, we're going to be going in 12 hours, be ready to go. And we would go up onto the Kuwaiti border and do, they were called a fire mission. You would go in, get set up. We had 6 howitzers, 155 millimeter howitzers. You would have to get set up, fire, and be pulling out within an hour, because the type of radar they had was a triangulation radar, where it would sweep across and pick one up, another one would pick one up, and then it would triangulate on you, and you would have bombs landing where you just were.
Widmer remembers how they were constantly picking up soldiers who wanted to surrender. The U.S. would send out these flyers in Arabic saying that if you wanted to surrender to them, they would keep you safe and give you food and water. During this time, many of the Iraqi soldiers were told that the U.S. was cruel and would punish them if they surrendered. However, because the Iraqi forces were mostly forced into the army, many fled. The Iraqi military would go into towns and threaten men's families so that they would have to join up instead of staying out of the war like they were trying to. When Widmer's unit picked up surrendering Iraqi soldiers, they would take them to camps where they would be kept safe.
North, they were coming south trying to escape, and they would be walking towards them, and you'd just be picking people up. And then you would take them to a rear area that they had set up just like a ranch, on a big fenced-in ranch, and that's where they were holding people, giving them food and water and stuff.
On February 24, 1991, the U.S. and Allied troops marched northward into Kuwait in southern Iraq called Operation Desert Sombre. As the U.S. went north, the Iraqis started setting oil wells on fire. Widmer remembers how the clear skies went from blue to black.
They knew we were going to start attacking. They started burning the oil wells. So there was oil fires everywhere. And actually that picture's clear. This is to the sky, and this is the ground going into it. And as we moved into it, it just turned black around you. It was raining oil.
Within 4 days, the troops had defeated the last of the Iraqi soldiers still remaining in Kuwait. Most either deserted the army looking for safety with the U.S., or they fled back into Iraq. On February 28th, President George W. Bush called a ceasefire to stop the war. This is when Widmer's unit was finally sent home from Saudi Arabia. He recalls all of the procedures they had to go through to finally be able to just get home. They had to sanitize all of their belongings to ensure that no diseases were brought back into the United States.
We had to decontaminate everything we owned. Even before we came from Saudi Arabia, we had to clean everything. And then we got back to the United States, and everything was still in quarantine, and we had to clean it better from there before we took it out, because they didn't want anything coming back here to contaminate anything or bring any diseases or bugs.
They were also given pamphlets to help them assimilate back into the normal way of life. After the war, his unit was welcomed back into America with open arms, being looked at like heroes. Widmer felt proud that America could start to be proud of the people going to fight for the country and not just worrying about why the war was bad. Such as Vietnam, the soldiers in that war did not receive the same welcome back, and Widmer was proud that that was no longer the case.
It made me happy to see that people were supportive and could actually support one another. And I had relatives who had been in Vietnam and know that they didn't receive the same welcome back that we did. So our unit actually put the members in my unit who were still from Vietnam in the front. So whenever they marched through, they got to receive the welcome they never received.
When the war was ending, they made Iraq agree to peace terms. These were agreeing to destroy and stop producing chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons. During this time, the Kurds from the north and the Shiites from the south started their own rebellions. With this, Saddam struck these rebelling people down with a crude force. After that, the coalition started to restrict Iraqi aircrafts from operating in no-fly zones. The US and Britain would patrol the Iraqi skies. Saddam started to refuse inspectors that were sent to check and make sure they were keeping to the peace terms. However, Saddam started to not allow these inspectors in. With this, President George W. Bush gave Saddam an ultimatum. Saddam was to either step down from power or risk another war. He refused, and this is what led to the Second Iraqi War. With learning in depth how this war played out, I can now see how America has changed throughout time. By getting the opportunity to listen to Widmer's first-hand experience on the battlefield, it has really opened my eyes to what our military actually does for us. This has given me the chance to really appreciate the freedom I'm given every day because of people like Widmer who put their lives on the line to help support our country. It's easy to see now that our country tries to keep peace as much as possible and does the least amount of harm necessary. So overall, this experience has been an eye-opening one and has changed how I look at our soldiers that work to protect my freedom and America's freedom every day.